So now what I want to talk about is the actual trend itself, right? So let me explain something to you. So if I asked you, if we went from here to here, who would you say was winning here? If you said heroes, you're correct. This is the campaign is advancing up. You have to understand what it is that heroes and villains do, specifically for this reason. It's because of the trend. What is the trend? It is the overall movement of a specific amount of pressure from either the heroes or the villains. It is a visual representation. We can visually see it. Now let me explain what I mean. The trend, first of all, it is your main quest line. It is in a video game, it is the main quest, it is the main story that you are trying to play along with. And you don't want to get caught up in all the side quests, right? Because then you're going to get diverted from the main storyline. Do you get that? So now let me put that analogy on the charts. So if I were to ask you from this point to this point here, who you think had control? Is it heroes or villains? The correct answer is the heroes, right? Because price is going up. Well, now if we zoom in and look at this, didn't price go down from here to here at some point? Which means that at one point in time, right? Because we're on a 5-minute chart, at one point in time, the villains were winning, right? But if we zoom out, the overall battle showed that the heroes were winning. Well, why is that? Well, you have to learn to separate these two things in your head. And trust me, this is the biggest fucking thing. This is going to help you so much. You have to understand how to separate these two things in your head. You have to understand, as a player in this game, that the trend is your main quest line, okay? And anything you see inside of the trend is just side quest. Does that make sense? So now let me mark up exactly what I'm talking about again. So if we were to mark this up from here to here, right? If we were to mark this up from here to here, would you say that this is the villains winning, or is this the heroes winning from this point to this point? Probably the villains, right? Okay. Anything in between this point from here to here is just a side quest. So when price had moved up from this point to this point for a while, right? When price had moved from here, where my mouse is, when price had moved from here to here, the heroes had control for a period of time. But when we zoom out and look at the bigger picture, the main quest line says that the villains are winning, right? So what do we do with that information? Opening up your video game every day and getting on the charts, you have to understand something. What is the main quest line? And then you have to understand, okay, am I going to follow the main quest line today? Or am I going to try to go on a side quest? Now, let me break that down to you. If I were to open this chart today, and I were to mark this up from here to here, right? So if this were the current day chart, so say this were the current day chart. I was looking at this chart today. This was today. And I marked this up from here to here. I understand logging on for the day that the main quest line is telling me that the villains are winning. So I can either wait for the villains to make a move and then follow along with them, which is the smart thing. I don't know how many of you have ever heard that the trend is your friend. That's basically what that means. Or I can try to take a side quest and take a piece of the heroes taking control for a certain period of time. Now you got to understand that risks come with that though, right? Because the main quest line is it's going against the heroes right now. Or you can do a third thing, which is wait for the heroes to tell you that they're taking over, which is another thing that we are going to talk about. Knowing when heroes or villains are taking control of the trend, okay? So if I were trading this, right, and say I wanted to take a side quest, right? So at this point, I understand that the main quest line is in the villain's favor. But say I wanted to take a side quest. All I would do is I would wait for the heroes to show me that they're present. So we can see that heroes are present here, right? Well, where did the heroes push the villains away from? Well, if we look at the most current candle where heroes had spawned in at, they spawned in right here, right? Because before this, there was no heroes. They spawned in right here. So if this is a hero candle and the hero candle opens up here at the bottom, right? And the villains tried to take control of this candle, right? They tried to take control of this candle because we could see that it came down, but ultimately the heroes were able to push it back up all the way up until this point, where it then opened up on this candle here. Something important about this is I want to mark up on that first candle, I want to mark up where those villains had gotten pushed away from. Because now this essentially becomes a no-no spot for the villains. It is the area they got pushed away from. And now if we watch price, my bad. Now if we watch the quest line react off of this area, let's see what happens, right? We can see that ultimately, right? Let's go down in here and read this. We can see that the villains tried to come, right? Because this candle came down and it closed villainous. We can see that the villains tried to come back into this area where they had originally gotten their power taken from them, but they weren't able to fully come back down into there. They were able to touch the area, but they weren't able to continue moving below this area. And ultimately, what we can see what happened is that a very strong group of heroes stepped in, right? And they never were able to get back below this area. So this is an example of taking a side quest over the main campaign, aka in trader terms, your counter trend trading. Now, say I wanted to trade with the main quest line. The main quest line is telling me that the villains have control, right? It's the same thing but backwards. Since we know that villains lost their power here, all you're doing is just waiting for villains to prove to you, right? Because you want to join the villain team. So they need to prove to you that they deserve you on their team, right? So where did the villains lose control at? Well, they lost control here, right? So you need to wait for them to move below that area for you to step in. If they never move below that area, you never step in. It's as simple as that. See, here again, the villains they came down into that area. This is a villainous candle, and we can see here that they got pushed away, right? Because there's this giant trail here. They got pushed away where the heroes started to step back in. And now they're once again, they're at this area again. They're trying to, they're really trying to break it. We can see that it kept, let's go back here for a second. We can see here that they kept not being able to push those heroes out of the way, right? But you have to understand something, is that the heroes, they're showing you they're very strong here. But the main quest line, the main storyline, it's not the hero's story right now. It is the villain's story until the villains either decide to step away and give up, or until a massive amount of heroic heroes just overpower the villains. Until that happens, and I can show you what that looks like when that happens, but until that happens, this is a villain story, okay? So, once again, at this point, you're waiting for the villains to prove to you that they deserve you on their team. That doesn't happen until the villains, as we can see here, the villains are able to come below this point where they originally got their power taken from them. Do you see the amount of power that it took for these villains to completely take their power back? Because these heroes were so strong, every time the villains brought the story down, the heroes would instantly retake control of the story. Every time that the heroes brought the villains brought the story down, the heroes would instantly regain control of the story. So the villains had to say, okay, guys, look, the main story, the main overall story is on our side. We just need to regroup and put our heads together. And bam, once they finally planned and got what it is they needed, they broke that. Do you see that? So at this point, well, you can see it there. So at this point, you're interested now in joining the villains, right? Because that's what the main story is telling you until it tells you otherwise. So we know anything underneath this area now, villains should have no problem taking control underneath this area, even if heroes somehow bring the story all the way back above this area. If we come back down, so let me show you. If heroes somehow bring the story all the way back above this area, if we come back down, villains should have no problem re-getting back below this area because they've already proven that they can do it before, right? The only way that they won't be able to get back below this area now is if they're just straight up not interested in it. That is the only way. They've already proven that even with the sheer amount of heroic people stepping in here, that they beat all odds and they will beat heroes here every single time because they've done it before. Does that make sense? So at this point, you're interested in joining the villains team now. So you wait for the heroes to step back in. What you want them to fail now. You want the heroes to get completely overrun. And at this point, this is where you would look to start joining the villains. You see? Now, if we look at this area here, do you see the massive amount of, well, selling in trader terms, but do you see the massive amount of villainous story we got? Right? We have a massive amount of heroic story stepping in, but none of this matters until it tells us otherwise. This is a villain story right now. Do you see that? See, even with this, man, this is amazing. Even with this massive amount of heroic story that took place here, it didn't matter because this is a villain story. Remember what I told you before about this level here? Since the villains have already proven that against all odds, they've already proven against all odds that underneath this level, they can take control no matter what, even if the heroes were able to bring the story all the way up here. If heroes, if villains ever brought it back to this point, they should have no problem getting below this point again, because they've already proven that they can get below that point, right? So anything below this point now, anything below this point should be villain territory until proven otherwise, right? And we can see that's exactly what happened here. The story continued to move downwards as long as we're underneath this area where buyers tried to take control. And we can keep doing this as the story continues to go down. So now that we understand that, there is something we haven't discussed, which is, how do I know when? So let me mark that back up. How do I know when the narrative has changed? So let's recoup one more time. Since we know that the overall narrative is a villainous story, how do I know once the narrative has changed? There is a way to tell. We are going to go into that in another video, because looking at my recording timer, I'm pretty sure I'm going to have to break this video up into 2 different parts. But we are going to go into another video learning how... We're going to go into another video knowing when the narrative has changed from a villainous story to a heroic story, okay? Because there is a way to tell. But for right now, you need to understand how to first spot the narrative of the story when you log on for the day, okay? And then you need to decide if you're going to go along with the narrative, which requires you to have patience. Remember when we talked about setting up your character? What was patience? Your stamina, remember? It's having patience to wait for that narrative to prove to you that it deserves you, okay? Or you can log on for the day, understand what the narrative is, but go against the narrative and take a side quest, which is a bit more risky. Like, it's a bit more risky to wander off from the main story, but it can be very beneficial as well. Or it's just faster. Like, it's just faster. It comes with more risk. It comes with more risk to go against the main narrative of the story. But it's faster. It can be more rewarding. All of those things. So that comes back around to, you're going to have to decide what kind of player you want to be in this game, what kind of trader you want to be. Okay, we're not there yet though, but I'm just showing you these things so you understand what they look like, right? So what I want you to do, and in fact, I think I'm actually going to break these videos up into different parts. And then in the final video, we're going to wrap it all together and then learn how to take a trade, okay? So what I want you to do is, on your own chart, because your chart should look like mine, okay? Your chart should look like mine. I'm in replay mode right now, but you don't need replay mode. You just need a chart. What I want you to do is practice spotting the overall narrative, okay? So if I were to look at this right now, so say my chart looks like this. Look, I've already told you before, copy my screen and what it is I'm looking at, because then you'll know what to look at when you're looking at your own screen. So if you want to copy me right now, where I'm at this current point in time, I don't know when you're watching this, but at this current point in time, I'm on a 5-minute chart. My candle is hovering above Thursday, the 5th, February 2026. Okay, so if you want to go find that. So if I logged on for the day and this is what my chart looked like, make your chart look like mine right now. This is what my chart looked like. What I'm seeing is the overall narrative had moved down, okay? So I want you to practice finding the overall narratives, right? And here's an example of the narrative just switched, but we're not going to discuss that right now. We're actually going to discuss that in the next video, okay? But I want you to practice finding the narratives, okay? So here I can see that the narrative is heroic. This is a heroic narrative. From here to here, this is a villainous narrative. From here to here, this is a heroic narrative, right? And from here, so from here to here, this is a villainous narrative. And I just want you to keep doing this, okay? From here to here, this is a villainous narrative. And why is it a why is it a villainous narrative? Because it fell, right? If you're a bad guy, you want shit to fall down, right? You're a bad guy, you want it all to fall. From here to here, this is a heroic narrative. Why is that a heroic narrative? Because if you're a good guy, you want things to go up. You want things to prosper. You want to go to heaven, right? So just practice finding the narratives like this. Zoom out, right? You don't need to be at a specific zoom amount. Just zoom out enough to where you can see things. And practice finding the narratives. From here to here, that's a heroic narrative, right? Well, why did you stop there? Well, we can see that Price, or the story, the quest line had went from this point to this point. It had turned around for a moment in time. And then from here to here, it went back to the heroes. So I want you to practice finding the overall narrative of the story. Because every day you log on to trade and play this game, you're going to need to find the overall narrative, and it does not need to be difficult at all. It's not difficult. If you're still struggling with this, comment below or join my Discord underneath this video so that you can get in a call with me and I can help you out with this on a one-on-one, because it's just easier to teach somebody one-on-one than it is to teach however many people are watching this through a video. So once again, after you've found the narratives, so after you've marked up the narratives, so at this point, I want you to stick with me. So say this was a narrative that you marked up from here to here, okay? What I want you to then do is zoom in to that narrative. So this is the narrative from here to here. I want you to zoom into that narrative, and I want you to practice finding the side quest. Well, what is the side quest in this example? Well, first of all, you have to understand what the narrative is. What kind of narrative is this? This is a heroic narrative. Why? Because it is rising. So I want you to zoom in now. What would a side quest be in a heroic narrative? It would be a villainous side quest, right? I mean, think about it. It's literally just, so a side quest is just the opposite what the main quest line is for that day, right? So if we zoom in here, we can see that I can literally show you examples all day, but this is what I want you to do. Okay, so this is the main narrative you have marked up on your screen, or just mark up any narrative. If you have a villainous narrative, you're looking for a heroic side quest. If you have a heroic narrative, you're looking for a villainous side quest, okay? You are just counter trend trading. That is what it's called. So in this example, this is a heroic narrative. I want to look for a villainous side quest, okay? Why would I take what are some of the reasons I would take a side quest? It's probably quicker for that day or that moment in time when I'm trading. It's probably quicker, or it might be more rewarding. Like, there's plenty of reasons. Or maybe it's just my trading style. I prefer to, I have a better win rate, or I have a better hit rate when I trade, when I play the game against the main narrative of the story. I'm just a side quest hustler. I just grind out side quests. Maybe I'm that kind of player. Like, really, you have to understand yourself, right? So sorry, I got a little bit sidetracked there. But if this is the heroic narrative, I'm looking for a villainous side quest. So if I zoom in here and say let's say this was the price for the day, right? And don't worry about this back here, right? Like this, you can see that this is a villainous narrative, but then why are you marking up a heroic side quest? Because we haven't discussed yet when to know that the narrative has changed, right? I can see that the narrative has changed here. We'll get into that, like I said, in the next video. For right now, just stick with me, okay? Just don't worry about that. Don't think about this back here. Just focus on this. So I can see that the narrative is going up, and I'm looking to take a villainous counter setup, okay? So I can see here on the current candles that the villains, well, first of all, we know they're not supposed to have control, right? We can see that the villains here were able to take control of this candle. The heroes were able to bring it all the way back up, where they ultimately had their power stripped away from them. All right. And then we can see that the villains were able to bring the story all the way down to this point, where the heroes ultimately took the power from them here. So if I'm trying to take a villainous side quest, I want to look for where the villains were able to take power from the heroes, which in this example it would be here. And once again, we know that because here we have a hero candle and a villainous candle opened up, right? Because it opened up in the sky. A villainous candle opened up. The heroes were able to bring the battle all the way up here, but then the villains took their power away from them and brought the battle all the way down here, where it then closed and left this imprint on the story. So we know that the heroes had their power taken away from them right here. Hopefully that makes sense. So I want to mark that up, and you simply just sit on your hands. You simply just sit on your hands and you wait for the battle to get back to that area, and you want to see if the villains are going to continue to take power from the heroes at that specific point in time. As we can see, they did. It was really quick, and this will look a lot different in real time. But as we can see, they did. So heroes were able to bring price all the way back to that point, right? And then we can see here that the heroes were able to bring themselves all the way up here, but they weren't able to gain control, right? Because we didn't get a hero candle. They weren't able to gain control above this area. They moved above the area, but they weren't able to gain control above the area. We didn't get a heroic candle above this area at all. Instead, what happened was, because we got this giant line, this giant wick, instead what happened was is that the villains moved the heroes away from that area. Well, that's where you would have taken advantage of that happening, right? This is where you could have taken your position, right? We can see eventually what had happened is that heroes brought it all the way back up again. So we haven't talked about this yet, but if your stop loss was here, you would have gotten taken out. But if you would have just grabbed, like, you could have grabbed just a piece of this happening. Like, you don't need to hold for hours. We're not going to get into that right now. You just need to understand this. Do you see how the heroes aren't able to create any hero candles above this area? Now let's keep watching. Do you see that? Are you seeing that? The villains pushed the heroes away. Now you have to remember, the narrative is heroic, right? But when we zoom in and look at the side quest going in, when we zoom in and look at the side quest going on inside of the narrative, this is a villainous side quest happening here, right? The villains are trying to gain control. We can see that because this is where they were able to take power from the heroes. And every time the heroes come back to this area, they're not quite able to knock those villains out, right? Even with this a massive amount of hero power, they still got pushed away, right? And until they move, well, you can see right there, until they move back above that area, the villains are in control. So in this example, they moved back above the area. So what this shows you now is that anything above this area now, heroes should no longer struggle above this area. Why shouldn't they struggle? Because they've already struggled so much before, and they've proven to you that despite all that struggling, they were able to maintain control above this area. So even if the villains were able to bring the story all the way down here, if heroes ever revisit this area, they should have no problem bringing it back above that area in time, because they've already proven to you that despite them struggling, that they're able to do it. So now, if you were following, so that's how you take a side quest trade. We don't place any trades. We haven't gotten into that yet. There's so much more that goes into this. Don't think you're just going to jump on a chart and just be able to mark all this up. No, bro. Just continue to watch the videos. Trust me. Trust me. Like, I'm telling you, just trust me. Okay? Hit the like button, hit the subscribe button, but we're not done yet. So, if you were going to follow the overall narrative now, which we know is a heroic narrative, right? This is where you would want to start looking to take the heroic stance. And as you can see, the heroic stance would have worked out for you, right? So, are you guys seeing this shit? I'm telling you. And bro, and don't think I woke up and just like, I just knew all this. This is from me going through a lot of headaches, a lot of learning from different people, like just a bunch of fucking BS. Okay? So if you're a little confused right now, trust me, just keep practicing this, even when it hurts, because it's gonna click. And the way that I'm explaining this to you, although I feel like I'm all over the place, I don't know if I feel like I'm all over the place for you. Hopefully I'm not. The way that I'm explaining this to you, I've seen nobody else explain it like this. I'm breaking it down in like dumb language. I'm not calling you dumb, but you know, fuck it, we're all dumbasses. Whatever. I'm a dumbass, or you're a dumbass, bro. It don't even matter. I'm breaking this down in caveman, bro. If you're still struggling and you want help from me personally, or somebody else in the community, just go down in the Discord and join and at me in the server so I can help you, okay? But look, all right? Can't make this up, bro. All right, so look, check it out. That is your homework, okay? You're going to find the overall narrative, and I don't do anything else. Just find the narratives. Get good at finding the narratives, okay? And once you find that narrative, I want you to say to yourself, is this a villainous narrative or is this a heroic narrative? And why is that? And that why should not be anything overcomplicated. Do not overcomplicate it. It is simply, this is a villainous narrative because it is going down. This is a heroic narrative because it is going up. Don't overcomplicate it, okay? And yes, there is a way to know when the narrative is changing. We're going to get into that in the next video. For right now, keep it simple. All right? Heroic narrative, villain narrative. Right? Heroic narrative, villain narrative. Okay? Heroic narrative. Fucking huge villain narrative. Whatever. Heroic narrative, villain narrative, okay? Heroic narrative. Like, bro, just keep doing this, okay? Once you get good at spotting the narratives, you might ask me, well, yo, Dom, what the heck is this? We're not going to talk about that right now. That don't matter. Don't think about that. Don't think about that. If you run into this when you're doing, just ignore it, okay? If it's not going up or if it's not going down, just ignore it, bro. Straight up. Okay? Find the narratives. Once you get good at finding the narratives, do that shit for like 30 minutes. I swear, do it for 30 minutes, bro. Trust me. For 30 minutes. Hit that shit for 30 minutes. Okay? It's just like working out. You do it enough, you'll start to build the muscle memory. You start to build that muscle. Once you get good at finding the narratives, I want you to zoom into the narrative. Ask yourself, okay? Ask yourself, is this a heroic narrative? If you have a heroic narrative, I want you to practice finding a villainous side quest. If you have a villainous overall narrative, I want you to practice finding a heroic side quest. I've already showed you both examples of how to find the side quest once you zoom into the narrative. So go back and watch both of those examples. I don't know if I'm able to timestamp it or not. If I am, I'll leave it on the screen. Okay? So go back and watch both of those examples, okay? Villain narrative equals heroic side quests. Heroic narrative equals villain side quests. Simple as that. Don't overcomplicate it. Get good at finding the narratives, zoom in, and practice finding the side quests. That is it. Okay. So that is all I want to talk about in this video. So just to recoup and re-go over everything, just to make sure everybody, hopefully this whole time you've been taking notes, okay, first of all. But just to recoup on what we've talked about, and first of all, I would like to say, if I feel like I'm all over the place, or if you feel like you're missing something, bro, please listen to me. If you're still here, this probably is making sense to you. But if I feel like I'm all over the place, or you're still missing something, or you still need some kind of help, bro, click the Discord link and join the Discord. I simply just want to help. I promise you that is all I want to do. Because there was a time and there was a point when I was struggling with these same things and I had nobody to explain this shit to me. Right? And now I'm able to break it down to you. It's so simple, but like you have to there was nobody that could explain this shit to me. Like I would go on Google, like looking up these basic ass questions. Well, they're basic to me now, but at the time they weren't. I'd go on Google looking up these questions and nobody could explain them to me. It was always some fucking nerd like overcomplicating it, and they're overcomplicating it because they I don't know, it's like they want you confused, or I think it's two things personally. They want you confused so that you seek their help so that they can get money out of you, right? Or they simply just don't know how to explain things in basic terminology for either people who are struggling or people who are beginners. I think it can't be in between. It's one of those two things. That or the third thing, they're just gatekeeping. But like in the trading space, there is nothing to be gatekept. Everybody knows this knowledge. You feel me? Like this knowledge that I'm sharing with you, it's not secret. It's not any of that. It's just I learned it myself by just learning from different places and then just teaching myself by applying myself to the charts, back testing and forward testing, and that was it. But now I'm able to condense it and explain it to the version of me that was confused, which is probably you. I need you to understand that. So if you're confused, I most likely have a Discord link somewhere in the description or something. It'll either be Telegram or Discord. Just join it. It is free. I just want to help. Well, why do you just want to help? Nobody just wants to help. Bro, I don't, it's just, I just like helping people. I just like helping people. I know that sounds fucking insane. I know it does. I'm looking here, my camera's up there. But I know it does, bro. I know it sounds insane, but I generally just want to help because I've been that confused kid before, and I understand how bad you want to make this work for whatever reason whatever reason it is, whether you don't want to work that job or your family's struggling or you need some extra money in your pocket. Bro, like I've been there, bro. You know, I've been there. I've been that confused kid. I've had nobody, like I had nobody to like break this stuff down to me. I didn't have a group. I didn't have a group of friends to run to when I was learning this, because I don't know, for a lot of reasons. I either felt like I just didn't fit in, or somebody was trying to take advantage of me, or I don't know. It's whatever your reason is. I'm telling you, you have found your home. Throw your reason away. Just join the Discord. I'm telling you, help yourself. Help me, help you. Help me, help you. Help. Let me stop. That was corny. But yeah, bro. But as far as this video goes, let's recoup everything that went on. Okay. So we talked about, first of all, well, we talked about candles. But in video game terminology, what we talked about was, hold on, let me first of all turn down this fucking, okay. So we talked about, oh my, fuck. God, I hate Windows 11. So we talked about candles, okay? And we talked about what candles are. We're not calling them candles over here, right? We're calling them screenshots. They are simply, candles are screenshots of, how a battle between heroes versus villains went in a set period of time, okay? That is what the candles are. What are the candles? What are all these little candles? What are all these little candles on the chart? Guy in the back, do you want to answer? No, let me stop playing. All of these candles. Ooh, I thought I closed that. Hold on. Oh, good to know I didn't lose it. Ooh, where's my MS Paint? Bro, I cannot stand Windows 11. All of these candles are just screenshots of how a battle went between heroes versus villains in a set period of time. How do we know what set period of time we're on? Because we can choose our set period of time up here, right? If we're on a 15 minute time frame, each candle is 15 minutes worth of battle. By the time the candle closes, it is a screenshot of how that battle went, right? If we're on an hourly chart, right? This is 1 hour worth of battle. And by the time this candle fully closes and the next one opens up, that means that this is a heroic screenshot of how that battle went. The heroes were able to overcome the villains inside of this screenshot. And we'll get into like zooming into the screenshot and looking at it in another video. But just for right now, for simplicity, that's all you need to know, okay? And the higher up you move in time, the more significance that screenshot holds. Okay, one more time. So if we're on a 5 minute, right? And these are 5 minute screenshots. The higher up I move in time, the more significance that screenshot will hold. Meaning that it will be a more powerful screenshot. It will mean more to the overall story. Compare, like a 1 hour screenshot will hold more power than a 5 minute screenshot. And once again, I will explain why you even need to know all that in the first place in the next video. If you think this video helped you, the next video is going to help you a lot even more, hopefully. And not even hopefully, I guarantee, I know it's going to help you, bro, because I probably just blew your mind, or at least I opened your mind a little bit in this video. Hopefully. I know I'm a bit all over the place sometimes, okay? I understand that, or at least I feel like I am. You know, it's been a while since I've like recorded and like done YouTube and like been on a camera, blah, 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 blah. It doesn't matter, bro. Okay, man? I've already given you a solution on how you can even fix your problem if you're confused in the first place. Just join my Discord. All right? So, look. Sorry, I gotta fucking piss, bro. I ain't gonna lie, dude. I'm holding this shit in. Like, I'm holding this piss in, and it's like, it's getting to me. I'm being honest. Okay, so we're going to discuss this a little bit more in the next video as well. But for now, so we talked about candles. Candles are what? Screenshots of how a battle went between here. Okay, right? We talked about candles. We talked about trends. What are trends? Can anybody answer this? You don't need to give like the specific description of like what a trend is. Just in video game terminology, what is a trend? It is the overall narrative of how a battle between heroes versus, oh my god, it's so annoying. Heroes versus villains. Villains. I spelled it wrong back here. Yo, I swear, I'm not unk. Of how heroes versus villains went. So trends, it is the overall narrative of how a battle between heroes versus villains, I'll say actually, is going currently in time / went. We put / went because if the narrative broke and has changed, well, then it was previously, right? So we haven't gotten to that. Once again, that'll be the next video. But this is what you want to write down, okay? So that you remember what these things are. And if I can, I'll go back and put the timestamps for when we started talking about each of these things and where it ends. So if you need a refresher, you have it. Once again, I don't know if I'm going to be laser now when I edit these, so we'll see. If not, just go back and watch the video, I guess. I don't fucking know. But so trends are, it's the overall narrative of how a battle between heroes versus villains is going currently in time / went. Honestly, I would put between a point A and a point B, but you don't really need to write that up. Bro, I need to piss so bad. Oh my fucking god. I actually can't hold it in anymore, but I don't want to forget what I'm talking about. Okay. The next thing we talked about what a hero versus a villain. Oh, bro, I gotta stop doing this. Villain actually was. Can anybody answer this? What do heroes do? Heroes do what? What do heroes do? They move the story up. So, what do hero candles do? Hero candles do what? They move up, right? Hero candles move up. They look to seek the sky. They look to move towards heaven, okay? What do villain, oh my god, I gotta stop doing that. Oh my god, yo guys, I swear to god, I'm not retarded. I don't even know if I can say that on YouTube. I'll probably bleep that out. But what do villain candles do? Right? They move the story down. Right? Villain candles move down. Okay? They open at the top because they're falling out the sky. That is what villain candles do. Where do villain candles open? They open in the sky because they look to fall towards HE double hockey sticks. And they look to close on the ground, right? Where do hero candles open up? They open up at the bottom because they look to seek for the sky. Because they're good guys. Okay? So they look to close at the top. Hero candles open up at the bottom and they look to seek for the sky and they look to close in the sky. Okay? Another thing we talked about was the candle wicks. For those of you who probably forgot, it is these things right here, these giant things on each of these candles. The bigger it is, the more significance it holds, first of all. That's probably something you should write down. But for right now, we're just going to stick to basic descriptions. So candle wicks, what are they? We'll just write what they show you, right? Because there are a lot of things. But they show where heroes or villains had lost. What should we write here? They show where heroes or villains have lost power. They show where heroes or villains have lost power. Yep, I think I like that, right? So the candle wicks on each of the candles, they show where heroes or villains have lost power, right? That's what they do. And then we use those areas where the hero or the villain have lost power, and we wait for the narrative to come back to that area where they have lost power and to either trade through it or trade away from it, right? Because then that gives us context. And once again, we'll get into that when we start discussing how to enter and our trading strategy. But for right now, if you can understand that, you'll know how to trade. Because what I just showed you literally is the trading strategy. However, there's a bit more to it, so that you don't want to be like marking up every single like fucking candle wick, you feel me? And then you're getting like, bro, like you can't do that. I'm telling you, it's not going to work. But I've greatly improved your chances now, and hopefully you feel like you found some value in what it is that I'm sharing with you. So that is what the candle wicks do. They show you where heroes or villains have lost power, right? And that's very important. This is very important relative to the narrative. So if you want to write that here as well, very important relative to the overall narrative. So this is very important relative to the overall narrative, right? And the reason this is important, and you can write this down as well, is because we want to know the narrative to decide if we're either going to wait and trade with the narrative or if we're going to look to take a side quest counter to the narrative, right? And we can only do that through the wicks, because the wicks show us who either lost power or who has power in the storyline. You feel me? So that's why it's very important relative to the overall narrative, okay? Hopefully that makes sense. I think those were all the things we talked about. The trend itself, so the trend, once again, it's just the main quest line. It is the overall narrative, right? An uptrend, so an uptrend, an up quest line is just heroes advancing in the story. A down quest line, a downtrend, is villains advancing in the story, right? That's all it is. And the trend itself, so an overall downtrend is just a collective of fighting going on. So one more time for my people in the back who need a bit more explaining. So doesn't matter what chart you're on, okay? Doesn't matter what time frame you're on. A overall narrative itself, so the thing that created this move to this move here before it ended, it is just a collection of battles going on, okay? It is a collection of screenshots. I mean, you can literally see that, right? It is a collection of screenshots. But in those collection of screenshots, a majority of them were hero bias. They were hero-based screenshots, right? It shows you that out of all that fighting, a majority of the heroes were winning, which is why the narrative went up. So one more time, the trend or the overall narrative is just a collection of fighting, aka a collection of screenshots. And whether it's going up or it's going down tells you that a majority of heroes were winning or a majority of villains were winning within that narrative before it is taken control of and starts forming a new narrative, or if it's going to continue that narrative, okay? That is all it is. Don't overcomplicate it. Write that shit down. Fucking look at it over and over again until it makes sense in your brain. And the most important fucking thing, sorry for cussing, but the most important thing is go practice finding this on a chart. Your chart should look exactly like mine. Go where I was at. The date is at the bottom here. I'll zoom in on it. The date is at the bottom here. Go to where my mouse was and practice drawing. Literally copy me. Copy what it up, drawing up what it is I was saying. And then go practice yourself. Go practice. I've already given you your homework. If you're still, your homework is go find overall narratives. And once you get good at finding overall narratives, inside of those overall narratives, I want you to find the side quests, aka the counter setup. Okay? If you are still struggling, you should not be confused. If you are still struggling, join the Discord. Ask for help. And if you really want some like hand holding or like some speeding up in your process, you can DM me or at me in the server, and we can set up like a one-on-one, okay? Where it's just me and you, and we talk about all your questions you might have. Stop overcomplicating this stuff. It does not need to be overcomplicated. It can be overcomplicated, and some people thrive like that, but the reason you're here is because you want it less complicated, right? So stop overcomplicating it. Just do what it is I just showed you, okay? And we'll get into all the nitty-gritty in other videos. So drop a like, drop a subscription, and I'll see you in the next video. I love you. Bye-bye.